My understanding of NATO's actions, particularly against the guerrillas, it's patchy. Maybe you could help fill the gaps?
Sure. Well, aside from the odd direct engagement, it was mostly aerial support. Drone strikes.
Delivery drone.
I'm on it.
Just, check the box underneath for the toolkit.
I swear to God, Andy, if it's empty again...
That was one time. Trust me, you'll be dicking around with landmines soon enough, Mac.
Good, toolkit's here. See you later, little buddy.
What's that?
Nothing, just, talking to myself.
Okay, little buddy. Sure thing.
Hey, how are you getting on?
Not bad, not bad. Our gear's finally arrived from dispatch. I can start deactivating mines and leftover ordnance now.
Oh, right. And do you do that by hand?
Sure do. Crawl up close, identify it, and then just, disarm the thing.
I'm sure it's more involved than that.
Yeah, well, I may have skipped the part where, it can explode. Gotcha. Well, you were one sneaky little bastard. Now, what were you hiding upstairs? There's an old photograph here. Picture of Alexis and his brother Marcos.
The civilian killed at the church. The landmine, right?
Yeah. Although, honestly, it was a small miracle he'd made it that far.
Tell me more about Marcos.
Poor guy. He always seemed to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. He'd made it through the airstrike, but only to get caught up in the assault that followed right after.
There were still guerrillas in the town, even after the strike.
But Oreo Castro, it wasn't just a town. It had become a symbol of the resistance. It was important for both sides, and government forces were making their final push. Alexis had made it out, but his brother? Like I say, Marcos was always shit out of luck. The guy had been waiting at his brother's place. Marcos had been wounded, caught in the leg by shrapnel.
I see. Do you think he went there to talk his brother into leaving, or to join the cause?
Marcos was there to talk his brother down. He was only interested in survival, and that meant getting the IDAP at the church.
He remained incompetent then?
Protected by the Geneva Conventions, Article 51. But you gotta remember, right after the strike, it was total chaos. An hour or two later, the government sent a truck to our camp. The soldiers searched the civilians for hidden weapons.
But they didn't find any?
No, and we'd already checked. It's vital our camps are weapon-free spaces, safe havens.
And Marcus, he must have made it through then.
Yeah, just about. We talked a few times after. I don't know, he seemed different.
I can imagine why. And what did he do after?
Hard to tell, but like I said, he kept looking for his brother.
Of course. And Marcus, his body, is still there in the churchyard?
Yeah. To think he survived all that just to return to the same spot less than a year later.
Nathan, you said that Alexis had been a recruit in the Altis Armed Forces.
Yeah, that's right.
So, his decision to leave the army, to join the guerrillas, do you know how that came about?
It's funny, I asked Marcos the same thing once. He just looked at me and shrugged. Later on, I heard their father had been killed in the Civil War, but I don't know. Whatever his reasons, Marcos seemed to have made peace with the fact he wouldn't change his brother's mind.
So, Nathan, may I ask, when you first came to Oreo Castro, what were you doing there?
IDAP asked me to give some talks on landmines.
Talks? Who with?
Anyone who'd listen, really. It was all about raising awareness. You know, Alexis' house, his workshop, it was like something from another time.
I'm not quite sure I follow.
Pounding of a hammer, back and forth of a wood saw, I don't know. Things felt simpler back then, is all. Far cry from what was to come. Hey, quick tidbit for you. Oreo Castro means beautiful castle in the local lingo.
Oh, I didn't know that. Do you speak the language?
Not so much, only with the older generation. Not a problem now, though.
Oh?
Well, Oreo Castro's pretty much a ghost town. Nothing here but remnants of war and a couple of goats. And they aren't exactly great conversationalists.
My understanding of NATO's actions, particularly against the guerrillas, it's patchy. Maybe you could help fill the gaps?
Sure. Well, aside from the odd direct engagement, it was mostly aerial support, drone strikes. Of course, that all came from the airbase, the one on Stratus.
I see. Not Altis.
No. Even before they were forced to leave, their presence on the mainland didn't stack up to much.
Tell me more about Staff Sergeant Adams. You met him on a previous deployment. That must have been in Generous, right?
No, actually, this was after I'd left the military. Previous deployment with IDAP. Takistan. It must have been, God, 15 years ago? I think. Feels like another lifetime. Those guys at the outpost, the ones murdered by the guerrillas, they never even got a shot off.
How come?
Not sure. I mean, it all happened at night. Big thunderstorm, heavy rain. But there are rumors. Some even claim the attackers were wearing army uniforms.
I see. That would constitute a war crime, no? An act of perfidy?
Yeah, but after the executions, in for a dime, in for a dollar. There was a beautiful oak tree here once, 300 years old. Folks used it as a meeting spot. They'd pin notes for one another on the trunk. Going back to what I said about the people here, their support for the guerrillas, sometimes it was a lot more than food and water.
What, guns?
Yeah, even after the government troops arrived, garrisoned their mayor's house, folks were still doing all they could for the cause. NATO's been busy, even managed to clear out a few mines.
Hey, fuckhead! You want to watch where you're walking?
Special type, too. Very distinctive.
Remnants of the firefight. The one you've been telling me about.
That's right.
And Alexis. He'd been there.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I just met a guy claiming to have known him.
So, this firefight, it was... Just let me check the calendar. 8 days ago?
Yeah. Day of the NATO invasion. After the flashpoint on Stratus, there was chaos. Nobody seemed to know what to do. Finally, NATO got their act together, launched an assault on the Altus mainland.
And CSAT?
Caught off guard by the whole thing. They were there to fight guerrillas and not start World War III. So when CSAT dropped their support, government forces panicked. They were on the back foot. Needed to regroup. Major Gavras was put in charge, but it was a tall order. Gavras tried to fortify their position in the northwest, but it was a risk, and he ended up cut off. The guerrillas, they didn't hesitate, stormed its position, sent the survivors running.
Okay, and if you don't mind me asking, how did you come to hear this?
Costas Dimitri, the lieutenant, and the major's adjutant. Along with Gavras, the two of them were trying to make it to a helipack.
You say they were trying to make it?
Mm-hmm. NATO took it out.
How?
Caught it on the hop.
Did they have another plan?
Not exactly, but they decided to make a stand at the church.
Move 200 meters. Wrong. Helicopter, 100 meters to the right of us.
And the major, what sort of a man was he? Was he respected?
Yeah, I mean, his reputation wasn't bloodied in the Civil War. Gavras was his own man, knew when to follow orders and when to adapt.
Not the type to violate LOAC, then?
Well, that's a gray area. In the course of the firefight, the major used a mine dispenser. You can think of it like a portable minefield. This thing throws 14 mines as much as 50 feet, spread out across a wide arc of fire in front of it.
And they're designed to maim, rather than kill.
Yeah, but don't get me wrong. They can still be lethal. The major ordered Costas to place mines too. Alexis, alongside a bunch of guerrillas, they were approaching from the north. At the same time, a NATO squad was moving in on their position. They'd been outnumbered 10-1. Like it or not, these mines... To activate the mine dispenser, they could either set a timer or trigger it remotely.
Dimitiro, attack that truck, northeast. Truck, 400 meters, northeast.
They scattered the mines and sat tight, waiting for the enemy. Facing those kind of odds, it was the only thing they could do.
Contact, soldier!
Do you think the Major's death had any impact on the war?
It's hard to tell. A lot of experienced officers died that day. Had he lived, he may have filled the gap. But let's face it, once CSET pulled out, the Altus armed forces were through. The whole thing was over as soon as it had begun.
Despite the NATO invasion being a disaster?
Sure. That only held it back for so long. In the end, 3 days of fighting, that's all it took. But the human cost? The lasting damage? Well, that's another thing altogether.
How did your paths cross? I'm still a little unclear.
Oh, Lieutenant Dimitriou. He came to IDAP, to our camp. The AAF provided us with information on the mines. The guy was a wreck, but his training had kicked in. He documented the minefields. Well, as best he could. But for Marcos, it was already too late. He'd already found one. Poor bastard.
And the wounded? Did Costas have anything to say about them?
Off the record?
Pen's leaving paper.
An hour after the firefight, a NATO response team arrived. They found a massacre. Evidence of summary executions, war crimes. There's talk Costas might have been responsible.
Okay. You've mentioned Alexis was with the guerrillas. Do you know what became of him?
He was killed. Shot, I think. It's sad, honestly. Both their lives, they ended here. Just a few feet apart. Next to the church where they were probably baptized.